Hey, fourth grade, I am going to read you your story for the week and then kind of go over some things that you guys should be focusing on as you're reading. So, here is our story Experts Incorporated by Sarah Weeks, illustrated by Chuck Gonzalez. Remember, our genre is realistic fiction, which means it is a made up story, but it is very realistic in that all the things that could happen in or that happen in this story could happen in real life. And remember to focus on our essential question, how do your actions affect others? So you can see here's our main character. His name is Rod, and here is Lucas, his best friend. So let's get started. There are 3 things in this world I can't stand: cucumber salad, wool sweaters, and creative writing. Cucumbers make me burp, and wool makes me itch. But if you gave me a choice, I would rather burp and itch at the same time than have to write something creative. You finished your essay, right, Rado? My friend Lucas asked me as we walked towards school together early one morning. I hesitated. That's a vocab word. Lucas is my best friend, and we always shoot straight with each other. Yeah, I finished it, I said. Phew, that's a relief, he said. If you hadn't, I would never forgive you, you know. Yeah, I know, I said. The problem began on the first day of the school year when our humanities teacher, Mrs. Greenberg, promised that if nobody got an F in her class all semester, she would give us a pizza party. Just remember, she laughed, there are no F's in pizza. Here it was, the last week of the semester, and I was about to not just earn an F, but the F that would ruin everything. Because you see, I hadn't done the assignment, not one word of it. Okay, so before we keep going, make sure you stop and look at the predictions. So use what you've learned so far to make prediction about whether or not Rodney will complete the assignment. So let's continue and see if he does. As we rounded the corner and headed back up the block toward school, Jeremy and Russell, 2 friends from our class, caught up with us. You guys did the assignment, right? Russell asked us. Yep, Lucas answered for us both. How about you? Of course, said Jeremy. What do we look like, idiots? I can taste that pepperoni already. Last year's class got the party, and somebody told me she let them all have all the soda they wanted to. When I get nervous, I sometimes get hives on my neck, and I could feel one beginning to prickle up under my collar. You can see in the picture a huge hive growing on my neck. So let's stop right here and kind of go through, how do we know that this is realistic fiction? Could this happen in real life? Could you be in a class and you don't do your assignment? Could a teacher give a pizza party? Yes, those are all things that could happen. Are these things that maybe you would say to your friends? Yes, all things that could be said to your friends. So right now we don't have anything that's made up. There's no like flying dragons or there's no talking animals. So it's all things that could happen in real life, and including the setting. You go to school, that's a real place, including friends. You have friends at your school. So just keep thinking about those things that make it realistic. What profession did you pick? Lucas asked. Doctor, Jeremy said, because they get to save people and stuff. I picked truck driver, said Russell. They get to travel and eat at diners. I love diners, but my mom says they're too greasy, so we never get to go. What about you, Lucas? Star pitcher for the New York Yankees, he said. Man, can you imagine getting paid to play baseball? The assignment had been to write an essay about what you want to be when you grow up. Sounds easy enough, unless you're like me and have no idea what you want to be. And no matter how hard you try, you can't think of even one thing that feels at least the least bit right. I bet all the girls are going to say they want to be teachers because they know Mrs. Greenberg will eat that up with a spoon, Russell said with disgust. Yeah, probably, Lucas agreed. So what did you pick, Rado? He asked, turning to me. We were just starting up the steps of the school when a familiar cry went up from the playground. Hey, look, everybody, there goes Mucus. Hey, Mucus. Lucas blushed and hung his head as we walked up the steps and into the building. It happens to him all the time, poor guy. He has one of the worst names. Not only does Lucas rhyme with mucus, but even if you shorten it to Luke, it still rhymes. You're still in trouble because it then rhymes with puke. He's been tortured his whole life on account of that name. So you can see that Lucas, that's another realistic thing people get made fun of, unfortunately, but that is something that happens. Let's go back here. We had an idiom in here. It says, I bet all the girls are going to say they want to be teachers because they know Mrs. Greenberg will eat that up with a spoon. So is she actually going to eat up their words with a spoon? No. So what that means in the real meaning is that she'll appreciate it. She really likes it. She thought it would be a good idea. So if you're eating something up with a spoon, you think it's a good thing. Let's continue. Having a bad name is something Lucas and I have in common, and probably part of the reason why we became friends all the way back on the first day of kindergarten. My name is Rodney Curtin. My parents and my teachers call me Rod. My friends call me Rado, and my sister, who's only 2, calls me Rara. Rodney Curtin may not be the greatest name in the world, but frontward like that, it's not so bad. The thing is, at school, when they call out your name for attendance, they say it backwards. Lucas Bromberg becomes Bromberg Lucas. Samantha Smith becomes Smith Samantha. Unfortunately, I become Curtin Rod. That's bad. As we made our way down the hall to homeroom, I felt sorry for Lucas on account of the teasing, but secretly I was relieved that he'd forgotten about the question he'd asked me. How was he going to take it when he found out I hadn't done the assignment? After she took attendance, Mrs. Greenberg, we have her for homeroom as well as humanities, announced that she would be collecting our papers after lunch. There was still hope left. All I had to do was come up with an idea between now and then, scribble it down in time to hand it in with the others, and maybe I wouldn't have to ruin the party after all. The problem was I still didn't have any ideas. So you can look down here. He says, that's me. It's Curtin Rod. Let's keep going. What do I want to be? I asked myself. Come on, Curtin, think. I thought about it during math, history, and science lab, but with lunchtime only minutes away, my mind was still a complete blank. The only thing I could think of was that I wanted to be someone else, someone who had written the stupid essay already. As I looked around the room desperately, hoping to find some inspiration somewhere, I asked myself, do I want to be a scientist? Do I want to fix clocks? Write books? Build desks? Make pencils? No, no, no. Then suddenly, without warning, everything shifted into slow motion when my eyes came to rest on the face of the girl sitting in the second seat. I lost my place. Second seat in the third row from the left. Then that's when it hit me. I knew what I wanted to be, what the world needed me to be. When the bell rang for lunch, I didn't join the others in the cafeteria. Instead, I took out my notebook and began to write. When the 5th period bell rang, I was already in my seat in Mrs. Greenberg's room with a stack of 4 handwritten sheets of paper in front of me with a huge grin on my face. So it sounds like he came up with something. Why are you sitting there smiling like a dork? Lucas asked me as he slid into the seat next to me. And where were you at lunch anyway? And another thing, you never answered my question from before. What did you choose as your profession? Name expert, I told him happily. That's definitely what I want to be, a name expert. A name expert? Who ever heard of that? He said. Nobody. It hasn't been invented yet, but I'm going to be the first one. I told him. Oh yeah? And what exactly are you going to do? He asked me. I'm going to advise people about what not to name their kids. No offense, but that is so dumb. Why would anybody pay you to tell them what to not name their kid? He asked. Because I'm an expert, I said. Says who? He said. What's your name? What do you mean, what's my name? You know my name, Fish for Brains, Lucas snorted. Come on, just answer the question. What's your name? Lucas, he said. And what do all the kids call you? He hesitated uncomfortably for a second before answering. Mucus, he said quietly. Exactly, I said. See, if I had been around when your parents were deciding what to name you, I would have warned them that every name needs to be checked for bad rhymes. A kid named Leo is going to end up being called Bio. Anybody named Gabby is going to get called Flabby. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Your name is particularly bad because you have a double whammy. Tell me about it, Lucas said Lucas, shaking his head sadly. The way I see it, a name expert should be hired every time a baby gets born to protect it from being saddled with a name that could ruin its life, I went on. How much do you think you'll get paid? He asked. A lot. Parents pay a bundle for braces to straighten their kids' teeth. Don't you think they'd shell out even more to save their kids from being humiliated at school? Here's a question for you. Do you think there's any way a name expert could figure out whether a name is going to fit when a kid gets older? Lucas asked me. What do you mean? I said. Well, for instance, you know how Melody Adams is tone deaf? Yeah, she sings like a moose, I said. If her parents had known that she was going to be unmusical, maybe they wouldn't have given her such a musical name like Melody. Maybe they would they would have named her Moose, I said. We both laughed. Okay, stop here. Why does Rodney want to be a name expert? Confirm or revise your prediction about Rodney. So what your prediction at the beginning was whether or not you thought that he was going to do his assignment. And then he did do his assignment. So were you correct? And why does he want to be a name expert? What makes him an expert in this? I suppose a name expert could be trained to look carefully at the parents for signs of what's to come, I said. Like, for instance, if there's a history of baldness in a family, it's probably not a very good idea to use the name Harry. Yeah, or like if the parents have big noses, they shouldn't name their kid Honker, said Lucas. Who names their kid Honker, I said. That's not even a real name. Oh, and Curtain Rod is? I punched him in the arm, but not too hard because, like I said, we're best friends. Hyphenated names would have to be looked at very carefully too, don't you think? Lucas said. Like Jessica's, for instance. Exactly, I said. She's the one I was looking at in the science lab when this whole idea came to me. Jessica's dad's name is Charlie Mintz, and her mom's name is Sylvia Pepper. How hard could it have been to name her Jessica Mintz Pepper instead of Jessica Pepper Mintz? If they'd had a name expert, trust me, that never would have happened. You know, I take back what I said about this idea being dumb, Lucas said. I think maybe you're onto something here. Yeah, you think? I said. Yeah, and you know, once business takes off, you might even need a partner, Lucas said excitedly. We could call it Experts Incorporated. I laughed. I thought you were going to pitch for the Yankees. Lucas smiled and shrugged. I doubt I'll get picked up. I can't even throw a slider. But if you want a partner who can really understand why the world needs name experts, I'm your man, Rado. Mrs. Greenberg came down the aisle, collecting the papers. As I handed her mine, I heaved a huge sigh of relief. Not only had I avoided ruining the pizza party, but I'd managed to plan my entire future too, and it was looking pretty bright, if I do say so myself. So why do you think that Lucas changed his idea about Rodney's profession? You can see that Rodney gave him really good examples. He went through and he told him why this was a needed thing. Even though it was made up, he gave great examples and supported his answer. So looking back at our essential question, how do your actions affect others? So how did Rod's actions affect others? How do parents' actions affect kids? So there's many different ways that we talk about this. So Rod's actions, if he wouldn't have done his assignment, how would it have affected his classmates? They wouldn't have gotten the pizza party. They would probably be very upset with him. They would not think that what he did was great. Then also in the other regards, how do parents' actions of picking a name affect the kids? So how did Lucas's parents' actions of picking his name affect him? So later on in life, he was made fun of. He was called Mucus or Puke. So this story kind of goes into that essential question a bunch. So as we have read stories throughout the week talking about how our actions affect others, this is a perfect example of how realistic actions, things that could actually happen, have affected people. So if you go to the next page, there are, it's about the author. Then over here, I want you guys to focus on the realistic fiction model here. So thinking about our character's main character was Rod. His supporting characters are his friend Lucas, their teacher, their other friends, Jeremy, from the beginning that they're walking with, all of the people that they talk about. So the girl with the last name Peppermints, or their other friend that they were talking about had a bad name. Then it goes into setting. Where does the story take place? This takes place all at school. Problem. Rod's problem is that he didn't do his assignment and he does not know what he wants to be when he grows up, so he can't do the assignment. The events that lead to it. So him trying to think of what he wants, him going and kind of lying to his friends, saying that he has already done the assignment. All those events that lead up to the solution of him figuring out that he wants to be a name expert and what that's all going to entail. So these are all things that are realistic, things that could happen, which makes this a realistic story. Nothing that we talked about in this story could not happen in real life. Realistic fiction, remember, is trying to make you think about things that could happen in your own life. So to relate to things that you have gone through. That is the point of realistic fiction. So I hope you guys enjoyed this story, and good luck on all of your assignments and your test that goes with this.